Today I wanted to show you all how to make these super cute little jellyfish decorations. I'll show it to you. It's got this little hanger on it. I don't know if you can see it very well, and it's got these little curly cues. I think they're super cute. You can make them usually as big as you want, but today I'm making like a smaller one. So in order to make these, you really don't need that many supplies. You are going to need a 6mm hook, and then you're gonna need 2 colors. One is like the main color and another one's gonna be the accent color. I think this is also 6mm yarn. It's kind of just like scrap yarn. It was once used for mini great projects and now it's being used for this. But I think I've also used 5mm before and it was fine. So to sum it all up, you are going to need 2 different colors of yarn. You need a hook, scissors, and just a little bit of time. I'm also wearing this hat today as a little reminder that though I'm making this tutorial, I also have no idea what I'm doing. So let's get into it. The first thing that you're going to make on your jellyfish is going to be this cap part, and you do not have to add this little like hanger thing. It's just so that it makes it easier to decorate. So you're just gonna make this little cap part first, and to do that you're gonna take your main color. I chose this like nice kind of like light ocean blue, very on theme. And so the first thing that you're gonna do to make this little jellyfish cap is you are going to make a magic ring. And so to do that, I always look up a tutorial. There's a certain channel that does a really good tutorial, or if not, I have this really awesome friend who always shows me how to do it when we're crocheting. But I remember now, the way that I make a magic ring or a magic circle is I just make a knot like you might regularly do. So I take it and I go like this. So like when I pull on that, it makes the knot smaller, and when I pull it back, it makes the knot bigger. And make sure that pulling on the string on the end part is what makes the knot smaller. So you're gonna have it like this, and you're gonna take your crochet hook and make sure to leave a little bit of room in the knot, and also make sure to leave a little bit of room, a little bit of space left on this end string, because we're gonna use this end string later when we're making the tendrils of the jellyfish. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna take some string, twist it around and pull it through, and this is kind of a hard part. So now you're gonna have something that kind of looks like that, and then you're just gonna make a little chain through there. And now that you have that one, the rest of these should be pretty easy. I'm gonna actually flip it around because it's easier for me to do it that way, and I am going to pull this through so that it's not in my way, but it's gonna keep allowing me to tighten this circle or make this circle bigger. So because this is a circle, it's gonna be the sort of base for our big cap that we're gonna make. So for this first row that we're gonna do, you're just gonna keep, I believe it's a single crochet. You're just gonna keep single crocheting into the circle. So you're gonna go through the circle, grab some of the string, and when you have 2, you pull it through, and then you go on to the next one. So through the circle, grab some string, and then pull this one through the 2. Ooh, this yarn is kind of bad yarn, so I keep getting these little strings. All right, so you're just gonna go through, grab some and then pull. Oh, this part's always a little bit slippery. And then eventually you're gonna start to get this like sort of like thicker part around the ring. And as you're doing this, you can just pull, like cinch the ring a little bit. And so this is eventually going to become this sort of like circle cap. I think I've done 5 or 6 single crochets into this circle so far. I kind of just measure with my heart depending on like how many I want the circle to be, but I would just go until like the size of your circle starts to get like mostly full, and then at the end you cinch it. So I am going to keep going. So you're probably gonna have something that kind of looks like this, and just keep pulling on that string to cinch it. And like I was saying before, like you're just gonna start to see kind of where your limit is because you still want a lot of the string. So I'm probably gonna throw one more in there. So it's gonna have like that. And then we've got that nice ring going on. And so then I'm gonna just do one last, so you pinch right here and you pull. Once you like wanna sort of complete this final little circle, you're just going to go into, find like the top loop right there, and what you're gonna do is you're just gonna go into it and then to make this little hole even smaller, you can just pull, like you just pull on this string and it's just gonna seal it right up. So now we just have like a little dot. Now that we have completed our center circle, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this through and we're gonna do 2 more rows. So doing just a single crochet, I believe it's a single crochet. This is just the stitch that I do for like everything. Okay, so we're doing 2 rows, just single crocheting into that first inner sort of circle row that we made. And it's going to create more of a spiral shape, but that's okay. It's not going to be a perfect circle. Once we have gone around about 2 times, it's going to start to look something like this, and we can already see that it's like kind of having this urge to curve. So to make sure that this doesn't keep happening, we're going to add, when we go around, we're just going to sort of keep adding a chain before we go into the next single crochet. And that's the way that I know to sort of keep this flat. You can already see that the part that I didn't do that on is curving, but the part that I did do it on is flat. So I just did one of those. So far, in places that I notice that it's curving, I throw in a chain before I go into the next one. I'm sure there's a much more organized way to do that, but I just pay attention to where it's curving. Like right here it's curving, so when I get there, I'm just gonna throw in, an extra chain to keep it flat rather than curved. See, it's curved right there, and we want to allow it to get about we start to curve the sides like a jellyfish would be. If you wanted to, you can make a really small jellyfish like this, but this is how I do it. So you're gonna start to see that it's flattening out a little bit. That's good. This is good. Good job, me. So you're just gonna keep going around making this, the circumference of this larger and larger. And don't forget to add those chains. And so another thing that I do when it starts to get about that big is you can add 2 single crochets into one of the previous rows rather than one at a time, and that's going to give you 2 the next time that you go around. It might make some little like larger gaps, but that's okay. As you go around, it's gonna just start to make this kind of like dome shape. And that's kind of what we want. But try and make sure that it doesn't get too curvy. You should keep it kind of wide, because at the end we're gonna sort of cinch in the sides, and we don't want that to start happening too early. It's about this big right now for reference. Okay, so once you have this the size that you want it, you're gonna do one more row around, but in this row, you're gonna go into, see these little like fishtail, you're gonna go into the center of those instead. So like that, you're gonna go into there and single crochet, and you're gonna do that around just one time. So into there. Now that we've gone around, going just into the middle part, we're gonna have this nice little cap, and we're just going to tie this off and cut it. So now that you've completed your jellyfish cap, you'll notice that I left the strings on it. This one at the top you're gonna need. The one at the bottom, I like to use it. You don't have to, it's okay. I'll show you what I'm using them for later. So after you have your cap, we're gonna start working on this part of the jellyfish, the lacy part, and we're gonna do that in this accent color, and I will show you how. Okay, so you're gonna start with your accent color. You are just going to start it out like you would anything else. That little slip knot, make sure it tightens by pulling this one. And then once you have it on there, take your jellyfish cap. You're gonna find that spot where the little string is. That's why I like to leave it on. And you're just gonna go through like this. You're gonna take the long side. Sometimes it's hard to keep them straight. You are gonna just pull it through so you have like a double, but then you're just gonna do slip stitch like that. And then once you've started there with your slip stitch, then to make the lace, you're gonna chain 3, and then you're gonna go into the next hole and single crochet, and then you're gonna chain 3, and then you're gonna go into the next one and single crochet. So this is creating a kind of like bumpy lacy shape like that, And so you're just gonna keep doing that all the way around. So you chain 3 and then you go into the next one and single crochet. And we're gonna do that all the way around until we get to right here. We're gonna come back. So once you've reached this point right here with your little lacy edge, you're just gonna take this, chain 3 one last time, put it right next to where you started, and then we're going to tie this off. I've cut it and I'm just gonna pull it through like this. And then you should have these two next to each other. I'm just gonna tie them so it makes a nice like neat little knot. And honestly, that's why I left this here, just so that I just kind of like to tie them all together. And then you can cut these. So now you've got your jellyfish cap. Looks nice and smooth on all the edges. And you've got this like little string hanging down. The way that it's curving, the string should be coming down through the middle. And if it's not, and if it's on the other side, you can just pull it through. So as soon as you have your little jellyfish cap, then we're gonna start on the straight tendrils and the curly tendrils using both of our colors. And I like to do the curly tendrils in the accent color and the straight tendrils in the color of like most of the cap. But if you think it looks good a different way, feel free to do it a different way. Sometimes like I mix them. So yeah, I will show you how to do both kinds of tendrils. Okay, so for the tendrils, I'm just gonna show you right here because it's pretty easy. So basically, you're gonna take, this is for the curly tendrils. You're gonna take your accent color, whatever color you choose. You're gonna just start it off with a slip knot. And so for this one, because it curls, you're gonna have to chain a lot longer than you want your tendril to be. I would even say like 2 to 3 times longer, because when you curl it, it becomes a lot shorter. This is actually really, really long, but it's all curled up. So make sure you give it a little bit of extra length if you're doing a curly one. So you're gonna start out and you're just gonna make a chain. And like I said, make it like 2 to 3 times longer than you want the tendril to be. And then I will show you the next step. Once you've got your chain, it should be pretty long, like seriously, this is like 170 chains. I don't know, you just chain like this. So once you've done your chain, you're gonna do another row, and you're just going to skip 2, you're gonna skip 2, and then go into the third one every single time. So I'm gonna skip these 2 and go into the third one. Single crochet. And then I'm gonna skip the next 2 and go into the third one. Single crochet. And then skip the next 2, go into the third one. So on your way back, just keep skipping 2 of the chains that you made and going to the third one all the way up to the top. And then if it's not quite even at the top, that's okay. So I've just finished this first tendril, and as you can see, it's like way shorter than it was before. And now it's all nice and curly. And so I've got it at the top like this. I'm just going to tie this off, pull it through that little hole that I made. And so now we've got these. And this is where, the first one's always the hardest one to attach. This is where this little string that I told you to keep on, and going to tie them around this string and like make a knot of them around the center string and like attach it so that it will look a little bit like this at the end. Okay, I will show you how to do that. Alright, so we've got our little tentacle here, and we've got our center string, and I just like to start by tying just like a small knot, and then I tie these in a knot, and I tie these ones in a knot, and eventually it just kind of becomes attached to this center part. It's not perfectly in the center, but that is okay because we need that room for our other tendrils. And now it's attached, and you can make your other tendrils with strings on the end and attach them the same way. Now we've got our first tendril attached, and I kept the strings on because these are really helpful when you want to attach the other tendrils as well. You can just keep tying the end strings around each other. So that's how you make the curly tendril, and this one I made pretty long, but that's the way that I want it. Now I will show you how to make the straight tendrils, which is it's literally just a chain. You can make it as long as you want, but I'll just demonstrate one. So again, you're gonna make a slip knot like this. Make sure that you can close the slip knot with the short end. And then you are just going to chain as long as you want your straight tendril to be. If you haven't seen how to chain before, you just have your little hole and the string, and you just pull it through. So you just do that. It should look like this. You do that until it's as long as you want, and make sure to keep your end straight. So I finished the straight tendril. I made it actually a little bit longer than the curly one, and I'm just going to attach it the same way using, but just one string this time because I don't have the two, because it's not 2 rows. So I'm just going to attach it by tying it in here, and you can use like all of these strings to kind of really hold it and attach it to multiple points. Okay, so we have our jellyfish cap kind of turned inside out, and I have my straight tentacle or tendril, and sort of knotting it in there with the rest of them. Like maybe a knot there, maybe I'll come over and use this string. I just do that a couple times. So now you know how to make a curly tendril and a straight tendril. And I usually like to do 3 of each. So 3 of these ones and 3 of these ones, and then kind of like vary where I tie them in. So yeah, you can make as many of the curly ones as you want, as many of the straight ones as you want. But I usually like to start with 3 of each and then see if I feel like there needs to be more, and kind of try to tie them in at different places. So like maybe tie one in here, maybe tie one in there, and then we can tie in the top part, and then it's all finished. After you have completed 3 of your curly cues and attach them, and 3 of the straight tendrils and attach them, you're gonna have these loose strings that kind of hang down. You can keep them if you think that they add to the tentacles, but I like to cut them, and so I'm just gonna cut those off. All right, so I've cut them, and now we have this lovely jellyfish, and I'm gonna show you guys how to put the little loop-de-loop on the top like this so that you can hang it. But if you don't want to do that, you could just leave it like this. Because I'm doing a little loop-de-loop, I left a couple of the strings so that I have something to tie the loop-de-loop to. But yeah, here we are. It is a lot easier to like hold up and keep it shape if you have the hook, because otherwise you're like smashing it. So let's attach the little handle to the top. So I'm going to make the handle with our green string, the accent color, and I'm just going to start off with a slip knot as usual, like this, and then we're going to find the center of the outside of our jellyfish, and with our hook we're going to put it through and just come out one of the sides, like put it in through the center and then come out on one of the sides and do a slip stitch through there. So once we've got our slip stitch into the top, we're just gonna freely chain just up until we have as long as we want it to be, like that. And then we're just gonna do the same amount of chains so that you can fold it back around. So you have this, and then you're just gonna fold it back around and stick it into the center hole. You're gonna stick it out from the side, and you're just gonna do another slip stitch to attach it to this side. So it should look something like this when you're done. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna tie this off, and then I'm gonna show you how to take care of these two strings. So leave some string when you cut it and tie it off. So what you're gonna do, you're actually gonna use these to tie onto the bottom. I like to do is I like to take my hook, I like to stick it through the top like this, and I just like to grab these strings and pull them down through. So there's one gone, and then I'm just gonna grab this one and pull it down through. So now they're on this side, and this looks very clean and nice. And then I left one of those strings from when I tied on the tendrils, and I'm just gonna use all of these strings in the center to kind of make more knots. I'm sure that there is a more crochet style and less of a knotting style way to do this, but this is the way that I like to do it because it uses the stringy ends, which I like to do, and it is also really fast, and it makes me less scared that it's gonna fall apart because I've just like filled my little creation with knots. So once I've tied those, this centers the tentacles, and it also makes sure that your little loop at the top for hanging it is not going to break off. Once you've tied all those knots, you can just cut. So yeah, that's it. You can like move the tendrils around, put them in the spot that you want so that they're kind of evenly spread out. And yeah, now you have your own funky little jellyfish.